Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for May 9th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also here are Ralph Kohler sharing their screen and Simo Helston. Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks, Benji. We are looking at issue number 3223022. Open the discard changes dialog in the on-off canvas tray. I quickly demonstrate the issue. I've also posted the link to the installation, so you're able to test on your own. Just as a reminder. Oh.
Try a clear cache.
I did already.
And Composer install.
Oh, no, it's working. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I tested it on the other installation. Anyway, then let's quickly do it here. So it's basically about use layout builder and allow each content item to have its layout customized. And if we go on here and go into an article, test, and save. Let's go back in here. Edit. Oops, no. I always am puzzled that basically the tabs are gone now and I always miss the top bar. Yeah, we have to go in here, test. Oops, no, not edit. I meant add. Oops, no, cancel. We have to add a section. Let's do 2 columns, add section, add a block. Doesn't matter. And discard changes. And what the issue is doing, basically, instead of going to a confirmation page, you get that dialog or pop-up with the cutoff H1, or better concatenated one. And if we go in here, and yeah, the one detail I want to illustrate as well, because if you go to the content type itself, go into manage display and now go here. Let's add a section as well here, add section, add a block, and discard the changes. In here, we get to still to the confirmation page. So it's an inconsistent behavior. That detail I've already asked on the issue, but I haven't got a response yet. But let's move over here again, because I guess that is the only way that we are able to see the behavior better. Okay, that's basically it. Any questions so far?
Well, I think the obvious question with the ellipsis in the word, who controls the size of that dialog? The dialog says discar ...
Yeah. Is the size set in here? In the patch itself? Not sure. That's past my knowledge.
Because it really looks like there is something seriously wrong with that one. If it only would say something like discard changes or something like that, it should fit easily.
Yeah. 1 second, I go back in here. Let's see what's actually in the title. It says, yeah, discard changes.
So what you're showing here is the behavior with the proposed changes?
Yes. Otherwise, we would see here a confirmation page as well. I'm seeing one detail. Yeah, it's using the dialog, the jQuery UI dialog, because we have an ARIA model true, and the problem might be that the H1, that is a change I've introduced, because so far we had only a span for dialog models, and semantically an H1 was the more proper approach, and maybe that at least, yeah, causes the concatenation, but the issue is, when was it last worked on? Uh, 8 months ago. Yeah, that's probably, yeah, those changes got in 2 or 3 months ago, and the actual work happened before.
Can you use the browser tools to change the H1 to a span, just so we can see if that can confirm your theory that this is, oh, that's much nicer.
The point is, dialog models, like for example on a view, switching from span to an H1, it had no implication on the visual look, but it seems like on that, yeah, error dialog or confirmation dialog, it is at least missing the styling in some sort, so it isn't staying consistent.
So I think there are a few easy things we can say at this point. The first is that because of that change to an H1, this needs some additional work so that you get something that looks more like this and less like the version that we looked at before. And I think you were saying concatenation, but maybe you mentioned truncation.
No, in the context of content strategy, it is used. It's the term concatenation is used in that context as well, so that text blocks are cut at a point, and that way they become incomprehensible.
Ah, I think maybe you're confusing the two words, but anyway, I would say truncation.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. It clearly needs work for that. Can you go to
Yeah.
the issue page?
One sec. I was just making notes on the side. Oops. Yeah.
And go to the top, the issue summary. And the title. This is not opening in the off-canvas tray. This is opening in a modal dialog. So the issue title needs to be updated for the current approach. And the user interface changes should have some screenshots underneath it. So we can tag this for an issue summary update. And all of that, of course, should happen before it goes to RTBC.
Yeah.
So those are the easy things, but I guess the current approach is to use a modal dialog rather than a page load. So
the dialog is quite small. What happens when you, let's say, try to close that you have unsaved changes notification. Not the dialog, but the notification. Somebody accidentally thinks that they can close that. So you click outside on the
No, outside
notification.
nothing happens outside. I'm clicking
Yeah.
right now.
So if you click, yeah, okay. So nothing happens.
Yeah, if I here click change, it's identical to basically cancel.
Yeah.
Same behavior. On a side note, the target size for the close button is too small.
Is that a standard with the theme?
I'm not sure. In here, I suppose Olivero applies and not Claro.
And that might be a separate issue to open against the Olivero theme.
No, no, I meant it in regards of why the styling looks unusual compared to, for example, Claro. Because that kind of dialogue is unusual, and I'm not aware of having that kind of dialogues within Olivero.
So what would be the proper way to do it? Because if we're editing a page in the front-end theme, but we have a separate admin theme, should these dialogues be in the front end or in the admin theme?
That's a good question, and I think the practical answer might be that we can't control that it is going to be the front end theme.
But it could be something connected to the navigation, and that's making it even more complicated. But these kind of things could be connected to the navigation theme.
Yeah.
Oh my, navigation theme.
Yeah, like the same theme that navigation uses on the toolbar. So that's the toolbar is more or less Claro, more or less kind of a, well, it's a new one.
So actually, I'm thinking now that after the issue, Ralph, that you mentioned where we changed the title to an H1, probably no one thought to update the Olivero theme for these dialog boxes. So I think that what's going on is that we need to open an issue against the Olivero theme to change the way modals are styled. And this issue should be postponed on that. So I don't think there's additional work required on this issue, but I think the problem discar ... is just not helpful. That has to be fixed before this issue gets merged.
Yeah.
So imagining that that's already handled, is this an improvement over the full page load? And if it is an improvement over the full page load for the confirmation form, then should we ask that this be done at the same time as the other page that you're showing us, where you're editing the layout for a content type, the default layout rather than the overridden layout? Should we do them both at the same time for consistency, or is it okay to do this one separately?
Question is how it was intended. That is not that clear. If that, yeah, based on steps to reproduce in point 3, it is probably about overrides only. But okay, and circling back to Simo's point, which is the theme, in which theme that dialogue should be displayed. Personally, from my perspective, it feels odd, at least for me, in regards of consistency. I feel I'm still in the admin UI, even though I see the preview or the front end here, but I still think all the communication about anything like, yeah, the confirmation form should be in the styling of the admin UI from my perspective.
Which theme it uses for, let's say, media library?
Media library.
Or adding a media from so some of them are, and also it's different if you use CK editor plugins.
Okay, why don't you use my test site? Going to Zoom chat.
Where's the chat? No, you have not posted yet. Okay. Now it's working. Media.
So just go to content and edit something, almost anything.
Do I have an image? And save.
I think Simo's question was about what the modal dialogues look like. So I think that would be in the context of editing a text field, right?
Yeah, if you're editing a node and then insert media.
See that
That way around. Okay.
Thomas Howell has joined us. Hi, Thomas.
That is basic page. Then, oops, let's do that one.
Okay, so here's the great big modal that the media library gives us. Is that using the Olivero theme or the,
That's
I'm sorry,
Claro.
is that
That's Claro.
Claro? It wouldn't be Olivero, it would be Umami, but this looks like Claro, yeah.
That's Claro. And as you can see here, we have the H1.
What's the size of that closing icon?
As you can see.
Yeah. So
Bigger.
it looks a bit, it looks small, but it has some area around it.
Yeah, it
Okay.
has
But close this.
28 by 28. Yeah.
So you're editing a page, so you're in the Claro theme. Instead of editing the page, edit the layout for that page. So that you'll be using.
Oops. Get in here and.
So now you'll be using the front end theme, Umami.
Yeah.
And add a block somewhere.
Mm.
And make it a text block.
Oops, text block.
Create content block at the top. Very top.
Oh, great content block. Let's make a basic block.
Yes. Oh, this is very limited. Is it possible to add media to this, or change the text format?
Block types, basic blocks, manage fields, create a new field and add a media.
No.
Oh, okay.
Go back to the layout you're editing.
Yeah.
And change the text format from basic HTML.
Okay.
Full HTML.
Full image. Okay. Oh.
Okay, so here we have front end block.
Is it also a dialog?
No.
Yeah, it is.
So go ahead, click continue.
And update.
And now I still want to edit that block.
Okay, yeah.
What options do we have in the ... Can you insert media here?
No.
So I'd like to get a test where we end up getting the media library modal, but maybe that's just not going to happen. But we did see that when a modal comes up, it is in the front end theme if you're editing a layout in the front end theme.
But let's quickly add simply a media field here to the basic block.
Okay.
Block. Continue. Let's make it only about images and save. Reload. Configure. Add media.
And that looks like the mummy.
Yeah.
All right, so this seems to be a larger issue that whatever the current theme is, whether it's the front end theme or the back end theme, if you get a dialogue, it will be themed by the active theme.
Yeah.
So if we think that modal dialogues should always be in the admin theme, well, that's going to require a lot of discussion and may or may not be a good idea, but would certainly be a separate issue.
Yeah.
I think a more immediate issue is that these front-end themes, Umami as well as Olivero, should be updated so that they have a larger close button and that they don't truncate the title now that the title is going to be styled with an H1.
Yeah, close button is also too small. In Umami, it also has 16 to 6 by 16, so also too small. Yep. Yeah, and I agree. The short-term solution would be fix things in Umami and in Olivero.
And also it's a theoretical possibility that somebody only uses front-end theme for admin as well. It wouldn't make sense for usability, but someone might do it. It's possible.
Yeah.
If you'll forgive a digression, I did once see a presentation where one team had done a lot of work on the admin theme to make it more usable. And one of the changes they made was the color palette, and they made it sort of match the front-end theme. Like maybe they had lighter shades of the various colors, but it really made a big difference that the admin theme was somewhat related to the front-end theme, not totally different. And most projects just never pay that much attention to the back-end theme.
Most projects don't want to accessibility test the backend theme separately. Thinking about the colors.
Yes. Okay, so maybe go back to your test site and the original issue.
Mm-hmm.
So since Thomas has joined us recently, could you demonstrate again?
Yeah.
So this now opens in a modal dialog rather than opening the confirmation form in a separate page. That's what the current issue is about.
And separately, on the content type for the default layout, if you do the same, you still get on the confirmation page instead of using the dialog.
Interesting. I'm confused by the value of a modal that just says discar.
Well, that's why we're going into the questions about the theme, and this is a problem with the Olivero theme, that the Olivero theme doesn't style modals as well as it should. So more attention has been given to the backend theme, to Claro, and how it styles modals, and Olivero has been neglected.
Yeah. And to be honest, I was unaware that there are dialog modals in Olivero and in Umami, and therefore I haven't tested it when we added that issue.
Right. And for Thomas's sake, can you again change that H1 to a span? So this was a
Yeah.
recent change that Ralph was involved with, that in the modal dialog, we switched to a more semantic H1. It used to be a span. And presumably when people were working on the current issue was before that, and this is what the dialogue looked like. So yes, the huge discard changes that gets truncated is a problem, but that's not a problem of this issue. That's a problem of the theme. So I've already suggested that we open an issue on the theme to style dialog boxes better, and postpone the current issue on that.
I think that makes sense because it's going to be hard to make a sound recommendation if you've got something that egregiously different, especially if it might take a while. Like, I don't know how frequently changes are being made on the themes right now, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of attention there.
At least in Olivero, there is some recent movement. So
Okay.
I guess it might get in fast.
It's also a question of how complicated a change it is to make. If this is something that's already been worked on in Claro, then it might be relatively easy to make similar changes in Olivero and Umami.
That would be good. So I agree with the conclusion that it should be postponed until the modals are there. And I would actually suggest that if there are other existing modals that, and it looked like, I think in what you were going through, it looked like there were other modals that use Olivero, then that should be something that is relatively important to do. I'm just surprised no one opened a ticket on any other modal because of it.
Well, we haven't looked yet. Maybe someone did. Okay. So assuming that the theming problems are dealt with, is this an improvement? Is it better to have this confirmation come up in a dialogue rather than a separate page? Like this confirmation form. Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one additional point. It looks like it should be dealt separately, because if you compare the title in here is discard changes solely, while on here you have the question, which I dislike, are you sure you want to discard your layout changes? So we have separate titles here.
It should have another third button that says, no, but I'm willing to take my chances.
Let's just go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I think that from my perspective, the modal is more intuitive. I've been building some forms lately, and there's a lot of instances where going to other pages or having things that just stretch out below the fold get ignored. So unless something is required, people like I think modal's a more natural effect. The placement looks a little bit weird to me in terms of how it's popping up in the page. Like there's a lot going on here. But I think that comes down to theming. Like, so I think that I would look to what the best Olivero or Umami changes would be as suggested. But I think that modal is a superior way to go through it, and avoiding going to a different, like, I only like having URLs when there's something to do on that page. This is just a confirmation window, and so I don't know why we would want to go to a separate URL. Like, I would never link to it just to go there. And that's my opinion.
I mean, are we willing to make a general recommendation that most or all confirmation forms should be shown in modal windows?
I would, but that's just my most recent experience for the past month or so, because I've been, again, dealing with this a lot lately. So I would personally prefer to see something like that because it doesn't take people out of context, and
Yeah.
it's just an action.
Yeah, I think I agree. Got a thumbs up from Ralph.
Yeah, I think so as well. Sometimes we have a lot of information there, like the list of items that are affected, but even so, I think it's usually best to have like that. It's best to default to dialogue.
Go ahead, Ralph.
And in addition to going with the dialogue, modal dialogue, I would also suggest to step away from that conversational titles and make them more clear and concise. Because here, are you sure you want to discard your layout changes? simply in the title have it's about discarding changes and provide more context in the text itself underneath.
That's right. Oh, that default, this action cannot be undone. I've run into problems with that before. So there are a few choices for modals, right? There's the dialog box, and I forget what the variants are. But I think one of the differences is whether the rest of the page is grayed out.
Yeah. It's a dialogue and a dialogue modal. With the modal, the background of the dialogue is excluded from the accessibility object model, and for the others not.
So what we're looking at now is an ordinary dialogue, not a modal dialogue.
No, it's a dialogue modal. As you can see here, otherwise we wouldn't have the H1. As you can see here, we have the aria modal equals true set.
Oh. But say again what the difference is between the two?
A dialogue, with a dialogue, the background is not excluded from the accessibility object model, while with the for a dialogue modal, with that, for example, aria modal equals true, or the dialogue element used, then the background is excluded. Then you only have basically the H1 in the accessibility object model. And the rest is excluded for screen reader users.
Okay, so this actually is a modal, but it doesn't have the visual indication that the rest of the page is grayed out. So maybe that's another point that the theme has to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll add it to the section about the theme-specific issues that have to be created.
Okay. And we briefly looked at the patch. The patch didn't seem to be setting the size, so it's just using whatever the defaults are.
Yeah.
So if the patch or if the merge request were choosing a size, then I think it would be worth asking whether it was making the right choice. But if it's just relying on defaults, then I think we can just leave that alone. The position and the size of the modal of the dialogue rather. Yeah, so I think we're pretty much in favor of this change, but it does have to be postponed on some updates to the theme. Go ahead, Ralph.
In regards of the styling of that, in that case here, Olivero, I would also recommend adding some padding. At the moment, the borders are quite tight and it looks quite cramped.
Okay. Then I guess the other question is whether we want to expand the scope to the default layout as well as the overridden layout, exactly this page.
Yeah.
Do we want to change both of them at the same time for consistency, or is it okay to do this in a follow-up issue? My vote, I'll go ahead, Ralph.
No, go you first. You've
Okay.
already started.
My vote is for consistency, that they should both be done at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree to that. And my question would only be, how complex or difficult would it be to add that behavior to the default layout as well? Because in case it is complicated for whatever reason, then maybe it could be moved to a follow-up issue, but still I'm in line with your point. keep things consistent. And that's the reason why I've already asked on the issue if it was intentional.
Okay.
Oops, where is it? Yeah, there I've asked in 39 if it's intended. And yeah, and on the other hand, there's also the issue needs a rebase because other merge request, because with that naming changes in package manager, you run into errors as well there. Okay, then I'll add, oops, make it consistent.
Thomas, Simo, do you have an opinion on whether to make the changes at the same time or use a follow-up issue instead?
Undecided. I think it could be done the one issue first because it's a separate thing. But if it could be done at the same time easily, then I'd recommend it. But it can be either way. No strong opinion.
Okay, so let's make it a request and not a recommendation. And if it's not done in the same issue, then we need a follow-up issue to deal with it. And I'm getting a thumbs up from Thomas. Okay, are we done with this issue? Okay, and we still have almost 15 minutes. It's probably not enough time to fully look at another issue, but I think it's enough time to get started.
Oh, I'm muted, sorry. Shall we look at the current theme condition plugin one?
Sure.
Okay, give me a second. Which branches?
And while you're doing that, I'll just say for the sake of the recording, this is issue 2783897.
Oh, and I have to change. Looks it kept it. Oh, odd. 1 sec. I'll have to test cancel.
And the full title of the issue is kind of long. Drupal current theme condition plugin should provide an option to match all themes and introduce checkboxes instead of using a select. And there are no screenshots in the issue summary.
Yeah. Okay. I can quickly demonstrate the change. What the issue basically is doing for transparency, for steps to repeat use, to actually surface that change, you have to comment out line 235 to 237 in the block form PHP. And after doing that, if you go onto the block layout page and go into, for example, site branding and configure, then you will see a vertical tab was added called current theme, with basically the checkboxes for Olivero and Claro and the negate condition. 1 second, I just have to check one thing. Appearance. Okay. I've tested on my other install and there I had Chin as well, and therefore I was puzzled why I only saw 2 themes available there and not 3, but all good now. Yeah, but that's basically the change. And for context, I've posted that before the meeting into the chat and told Benji already about. There is issue number 2986958. an issue we've discussed about 3 years ago. Wrong button. Simo, yeah. In comment number 41 is the review Simo posted and the follow by Benji, and also relevant is comment number 44 by Badia. Yeah, but that's it. Any questions so far?
So this current theme option, that doesn't appear at all unless you do the commenting out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or they've explained it that way, that that change surfaces for contrib modules, for example, they give them a few examples there, but for core, it does not, and you have to comment it out. Not sure why the exact details, but yeah, that's the rough outline.
And this is all on the block placement page, right?
Yeah, block configure block page, exactly.
Configuring a block from the block layout, yes.
Yeah, you have to go to the block layout and then configure. Or if you create a new block, add a block, save and configure, then you have it as well.
Right. And so the current core behavior is that you don't have any control over that. If you want to add it to both Olivero and Claro, you'd go to the block layout for Olivero and add it there, and then you would go to the block layout for Claro and add it a second time.
Oh,
I think.
let's test it. Let's put it in the header. Test drive. Save. 1 second. I had Olivero. Okay. There it is not. Let's test it there. Claro, save block. Huh. Oh. That's actually tricky. The regions don't, it's not necessarily that the header, does the header? Oh, it does exist. Oh. That was my initial thought, that the header region wouldn't exist in Claro, and therefore it wasn't shown, but it exists, it is just not shown there.
Could you try just selecting Claro? So the same config, no, the same, yeah.
Yeah, save block.
So it's just not working
Uh,
because you removed it from Olivero and it's still there.
Well, just to be on the safe side, can you save the form at the bottom of the page?
maybe placing a block and configuring the visibility are two different things.
And that's not a good usability experience because that would not be
Yeah.
clear to me.
Yeah, I just try to bring sense into it, why it is behaving like it is behaving. And also the point, my before struggle where I reassured myself about the regions, it's also tricky if you have 4 or 5 different themes, all with different regions, and based on the placement of the
Right. I think there's a reason that that we have separate pages for block placement on Claro, block placement on Olivero, and the region is a big part of that. Yeah, you'd need to select a separate region for each theme. That's why we don't do it this way. So I'm confused by this issue. Surprised there's been so much work on this without sort of clearly stating what the point of it is.
I'd like to see a video of it being used, because I have a giant question of, are we understanding what its purpose is?
So maybe we should go back to the issue and read the steps to reproduce.
Problem is basically currently it is not possible to exclude the current theme condition from evaluation. Though the select list with themes is not marked as required, the user is always bound to select some theme because there is no empty option, which leads to incorrect evaluations. For other conditions plugins, this is possible. For instance, for the Node bundle plugin, you can uncheck all content types so that the condition will always evaluate to true.
As a site builder, this does not make any sense to me. Like, I don't understand the real world. Like, what is a scenario in which this would happen to me? And I guess let's go through the steps to reproduce.
Yeah, and again, the steps to reproduce involve commenting out 3 lines of code. So maybe we should at least ask for steps to reproduce that don't involve core. So yeah, they're not really describing what the use case is. And that needs to be clearer. So I'll volunteer to leave a comment on this, basically asking for an issue summary update and saying that it's not at all clear what problem this issue is solving. And that needs to be a lot more clear before we consider the issue ready for review.
Yeah. Agreed. And the interface itself is also, yeah, the points we already saw, and then the label for current theme is also sort of confusing. And I have a pet peeve with negate the condition. And that's why I've linked to the old issue, because the pattern there was, yeah, going with the radio buttons, which is way more clear.
Okay, and we are at the end of the hour. My phone just switched from 10:59 to 11 o'clock. So let's call that a meeting.
Yep.
And even though we don't fully understand that second issue, we know enough to take action. And Ralph, will you post comment on the first one we discussed?
Yeah, I already made comments.
Awesome, thanks so much.
Notes, not comments, notes, sorry. Okay, doke. Yeah, then have a nice weekend.
Yeah, thanks all for coming.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.